Hey Capricorn, how's it going? So I've got some oracle messages for you here today, and I think lunar energy is really important. Now, the lunar sphere is not just a planet, but it's like a spiritual sphere that you can think about when a spiritual idea or an impulse comes from the spiritual world and wants to manifest into the 3D physical world. It passes through all of the spheres. And the last sphere that it passes through before entering the Earth is the moon. This is that last sphere of like turning an idea into something, taking an impulse and making it manifest into the world. So there's something here that I think you're trying to get going, and I think it has to do with team building or alliance forming or something with group work. It needs to be all kept above board right now. Secrecy, as JFK would say, secrecy is repugnant. At this time, secrecy would be really bad. So keep things like, in public is sort of the idea here. Meeting in public, or just, not putting personal considerations in as a priority, but leaving personal considerations, whether they're your own personal considerations or the personal considerations of other people in the group. It's not really time to feed into individual personal considerations. It's more about having harmony in a group. And to make these things come together, and I get the feeling that this is early stages that you're in of like building this group or building this team out. There can be a temptation to use occult means to make this successful, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I kind of encourage it. Using a little magic in life is fun, it can be spiritual and helpful. But there are two ways of using magic to get what you want done. There's the way of the magus or the magician, and there's the way of the sorcerer. Now, the magus understands the energies they're working with and why, and knows how to keep it all above board, knows how to use magical energies or non-human intelligences or what have you, spiritual power and so on, for everybody's benefit, including their own, and making sure that there's not going to be any sort of force unleashed that will cause negative outcomes. The magus understands that they are karmically responsible for whatever forces they do unleash into the world, and so they very carefully and procedurally understand exactly what they're working with, and their means, whether it's ritual and imagination or what have you, their means for engaging these spiritual forces to make something happen in the world is to fully understand them and kind of program them the way you would program a computer. You give them very specific parameters. You tell these energies or these non-human intelligences precisely what you want to get done, the time frame in which it has to get done, and when it's done, to dissolve themselves, to finish the task, and to stop doing what they're doing. And that you are superior to these forces as the magus. The sorcerer, on the other hand, doesn't really know what they're doing, doesn't really care, will follow some instructions or have some imagining on how to do something or have some inkling that they can make something happen, and will just give vague instructions to what's going on, to what they want to happen, don't really care about the negative effects, will try to maybe employ more energy than is needed, which will then have to be dissipated in some unexpected way because it's not being all used for the particular task at hand. A sorcerer just kind of doesn't understand the whole process, the whole procedure, and doesn't put limitations on it, and also doesn't care about affecting people negatively. And they're essentially using the same forces, it's just how they're being used and why. So understanding that we all have the potential to be the sorcerer and not the magus, especially when our judgment is clouded by emotions. So I got some watery energy that came into this reading, this idea that like having having like a feeling of pressure, feeling hurried, feeling stressed out about getting this thing going, these sorts of emotions can lead someone to wanting to take like shortcuts or trying to find the best way, what they think is the best way forward, by appealing to different group members' egos or making promises to them. This is where that secrecy is a really bad idea, is to like not have too many individual meetings with the group members, not to have one-on-one meetings unless it's like really important and still above board and there's just like something that you need to address with an individual, that's fine. But don't have one-on-one meetings for the sake of secrecy or for the sake of making promises or for the sake of their personal interests and attempting to satisfy them. And if you're feeling hurried or stressed out about it, also don't take any sort of magical shortcuts. Make sure that you're fully centered, in a meditative state, in full control of your imagination. You're in a serene state when you're doing whatever procedure you want to do. And be in complete control of yourself in your emotional center, and come from a place of serenity and wanting to do good, just making sure that this group work is going to be harmonious, the project is going to go over harmoniously, and those sorts of intentions are important. And trust that this group work will get done in a timely manner, it will be efficient, and so on. And you don't really have to stress about it. Make sure those feelings of stress are gone, because oftentimes in group work, there are only a few things that we can do to make sure that something goes smoothly, that something goes in the best way possible, because we can't control other people. That's, again, something the sorcerer would want to do, is working on the mental plane or even the astral plane to influence other people in a very heavy-handed way, to like unleash forces that would alter a person's thoughts and behavior very, very forcefully and according to like a very specific vision. The magus will not so much attempt to control a person's mental or astral sphere, but will create conditions where that person's mental and astral sphere are healthy, nourished, and will work efficiently and creatively within the group. You see the difference? There's one that's like helping the people in the group by working on the mental and astral sphere and influencing other people's mental and astral sphere, but for their benefit. And then there's the one where you want to like control someone's mental or astral spheres to do what you want them to do. One has karmic blowback, the other doesn't. And the things that we can do that are just in the mundane world, that are not necessarily having to do with some occult means that you wish to use, is within a group, maintain and respect the hierarchy of a group, while also treating everyone as equals, at least treating everyone beneath you in the hierarchy as equals with dignity and so on. So there's a balancing act to understand that there is a hierarchy, and in order for things to work efficiently and correctly, everybody's differences and distinctions need to be examined, and people need to be classified based on these differences and distinctions. And it's not for discriminatory purposes, it's just to be able to work in harmony and understand everybody's strengths and so on, and where they best fit. And also understanding that we should treat everyone with equal dignity and respect and equality. However, that doesn't mean there is equality in delegation of tasks, equality of responsibility, or equality in leadership. You know, I had come to me was the violinist is not the conductor. We can want to treat everybody as egalitarian as possible, but that creates a lot of inefficiencies, and when people don't, you know, that can create a lot of competition too, if there are people who see that there's no real single point of leadership, then things break down and people try to lead themselves or lead others when it's inappropriate for them to do so. Because I'm getting here that this is a time for you to share your vision, which makes me think that you are probably the leader of this group, probably de facto, even if you don't realize it at the moment. And it's your vision. You're bringing this group, this team together to execute something that you know about. And you're the one who has to delegate. You're the one who has to delegate tasks and responsibilities according to people's differences. Just make sure when you do that, that you're just treating people well, you're listening to them, and it's that sort of equality, like equality of importance of thought, equality of importance of feeling, equality of importance of input and output. So like, compartment A and compartment B might be working on two totally different aspects of the project, but they're both equally important. That's the sort of equality that we're working with here. So it's an interesting balancing act that you have to do while maintaining hierarchy, but giving everybody respect and dignity in an equal manner. It's also a time of understanding in-group and out-group dynamics. So keep that in mind. That's a really loaded issue. That can be in the workplace or in society or in social groups or something like that. There's an in-group of people who are together or have a common ground in some way, and then the out-group, which is like everybody else. And this can be in many different ways, shapes, and forms. And so perhaps this is just something that you're thinking about. If this isn't resonating with you, if there's no group project or anything going on in your life, perhaps you're thinking about in-group and out-group dynamics at large, maybe in a social circle, your family, or in society. And, we are surreptitiously taught a lot about in-group and out-group things in Western civilization, in the modern West, about in-group and out-group dynamics, in-group preference and out-group preference and things like this. Oftentimes we're taught that in-group preference is evil, that it's immoral to have in-group preference. And in my opinion, this is nonsense. It's only natural to have in-group preference. If there is some defining characteristic of you and other people that you're in a group with or in some type of, some sort of association with, there's nothing wrong with preferring that about yourself as opposed to people who don't have that characteristic. It could be any type of characteristic whatsoever. I know I'm dancing on ice here, but honestly, you don't have to feel ashamed about having in-group preference. It's natural and it's healthy. It's a form of love and compassion to express in-group preference. And having out-group preference does not make a person morally superior. In fact, it can make someone morally bankrupt if they have only out-group preference at the expense of their own in-group. That's a form of immorality in and of itself. So there's a lot of messaging going on in the world about in-group and out-group dynamics and what is moral, what is ethical. And you might be examining this and realizing that something is wrong with the way most people think about in-group and out-group dynamics. And your heart of hearts is telling you something different from what everybody else is telling you, or what most people are telling you, or what the media is telling you, what the government is telling you, what someone in your family is telling you, something like that feels off to you. And it can be a difficult thing to start to accept that you have in-group preference, and then even harder still to act on having in-group preference. To make it known that you have in-group preference can be very socially and politically dangerous. And it's unfortunately a very hard step for people to take, is not only admitting that we have in-group preference, but to then act on that in-group preference. Because people will lump you in with all sorts of nasty, things that have happened. They'll say you are like that bad thing that happened this one time because that bad person had in-group preference, and look at all the bad things that in-group preference having people have done. But the thing is, we do have different forms of friendship and different forms of love that we need to take seriously. There's an old saying, if you're friends with everybody, you're really friends with nobody. And what comes to mind is, like, imagine you have two friends and you're pretty good friends with both of them, and they get into a fight with each other. And friend one comes up to you and says, you need to help me against my enemy here. And then you tell friend one, well, that person's not my enemy, that person's my friend. And I can't help you, I'm sorry. And then friend two comes up to you and says, man, you gotta help me with my enemy here. And it's like, whoa, I just mentioned this to that guy. He's actually my friend, not my enemy. So I can't help you in this conflict. So I'm gonna remain neutral here. And so you don't help them. And then later on, down the road in life, you now have an enemy with whom you're in conflict. And you go to your friend one and friend two and say, can either of you help me out here? I have an enemy. And we're like, no, you didn't help me when I needed your help. Sorry. You're too wishy-washy, you're too neutral. So if you're friends with everyone, you're friends with no one. And this is a type of love and a type of compassion that needs to be seriously examined. So why would we have weak, wishy-washy relationships just for the sake of appearing moral, or for the sake of appearing politically correct, or for the sake of seeming like, trying to feel like we're good people by having out-group preference? We think it'll make us moral. We think it'll make us feel like good people. We think it'll have benefits in the long run, but it might not. Nobody can see the future. I know I'm a tarot reader, but I don't really do fortune telling. I do analysis. The way I do divination is to help reflect, not to really help tell the future. I think it's kind of asinine. I don't think there's much point in fortune telling. So no one can tell the future of what is ethical and unethical. And we have a lot of people who have felt like they were doing ethical things that lead to really unethical outcomes. Like, there are huge paradoxes with ethical activity that a lot of people, especially modern bleeding hearts, can't really deal with, like the concept of charity, or like feeding the hungry all over the world. Well, if you fill an empty belly, now that person has a chance to live longer and reproduce. That person has children, and now those children are going to starve as they grow older. So instead of allowing one hungry person to die, now maybe 2 to 4 hungry people are going to die. And the more charity that goes into feeding people, hundreds of millions of people, is it per day or per year? I can't remember, but many, many millions of people per year die of starvation. And there have been statistical analyses done on it that the more food charities there are, the more people starve to death the following year. It's a horrible cycle where we think we're doing something good, but we're actually exploding the rates of suffering by doing this stuff. Creating antibiotics might be the death of the human race. We think we're curing infections and prolonging life and increasing the lifespan, but it could reach a point where, and some antibiotics have pushed bacteria to the point where you need to make stronger antibiotics to kill these infections now. How often can we do that before we can't cure infections anymore? Medicine in general prolongs people's lives, but now there's more people living in poverty because there are more people in the world because of industrial society and industrial scale medicine. You see what I'm saying? We think we do good things, but sometimes we really do more evil than anyone has ever done by doing simple good things. So our attachment to outcomes has to be re-examined. What these people are doing who have these charities and stuff, they are really just doing it because it makes them feel good. They don't really care about the outcome, because if they did, they would have studied these studies that I have, these statistical analyses and these outcome analyses, in that, like, a lot of people think food charities should be ended. There's a whole political movement all over the world for that sort of thing. I know it sounds crazy, but people do these food charities because essentially they're bored rich people with nothing better to do, and they want to be good people, and so they spend their money doing this stuff. They create these foundations and charities and things like that, and they don't look at the outcomes. They just feel good that they're doing it. So what needs to be looked at is, how do we know what outcomes there will be? Well, probably won't. So how do we perform ethical action? This is a moment of reflection for any individual coming into this quandary, is how do I know I'm acting ethically if I can't predict outcomes? And we can only look at these things in retrospect, like with statistical analyses of food charities over a 75-year period. You know, it took a lot of data. It took 75 years of data collection for people to figure out that, oh, food charities might actually be the most evil, genocidal thing that's ever happened. Hundreds of millions of people a year. Like, my goodness, that is so many people dying of starvation. Acting in the moment is where we are stuck. How do we act in the moment? Well, if you can't see outcomes, if you don't know the ethical outcome, how do you know what an ethical action to take is? This is something that can't really be told to you, because every action can have a different outcome, a different sort of butterfly effect. So it's like acting in intuition, purifying your intuition to know. Allow your intuition to guide you with every individual action, instead of trying to imagine outcomes and analyze a situation and all of that. If your intuition is properly exercised and purified, hopefully your intuition will tell you how to act in a given situation, even if you can't see the outcome. And the action that you take might be perceived as immoral or moral or anywhere in between by different people, even by yourself, who knows? But the outcome is unknown to everyone. And perhaps some seemingly immoral action will have a really good outcome, or some seemingly moral action might have a really bad outcome, or a seemingly moral outcome might have a good outcome. We don't know. But your intuition will, because your intuition comes from a higher source that is kind of unbound by time and space. So look into the sort of things that work best for exercising and purifying your intuition so that you can trust it. And then trust your intuition for all sorts of activity in day-to-day life. And try not to get stuck into overanalyzing potential outcomes, because that can utterly paralyze someone and prevent work from happening, because there are groups of people throughout history who have sort of done that, imagined outcomes, and realized, I can't do anything at all. I'm just going to sit on the road and starve to death, because every time I step foot on the ground, I could be crushing an ant, or I'm smushing molecules in the dirt, and I'm damaging the dirt molecules. Everything I do is damaging. I became a vegan, but even eating vegetables, I'm killing the fruits and vegetables. Oh my God! And you might start thinking that everything you do is going to have a negative outcome, and then you won't do anything. And that's kind of how the original Jainists thought. And there are other groups who like did extreme things, where like, I'm just going to sit down and just perish, because there is no such thing as ethical action, because they imagined all these they tried to imagine and analyze all these outcomes and couldn't come to grips with any of it. So that's the issue at hand here. That's I think it's just a matter of, it's going to be an individual preference here as to how this occurs. So exercises that purify your intuition are of utmost importance. And we can do small exercises that are like parapsychological exercises that can help us train our intuition. And that could be things like guessing like what's, putting a bunch of playing cards face down and seeing if you can guess correctly the different cards that are there. Doing it with a partner, having someone like draw a simple image and staring at it and You have to guess what the image is. And the more we do these like simple little parapsychological exercises, the more trained our intuition becomes, and it can be very helpful. Staring into someone's eyes and trying to read their emotional state without them giving away any body language or anything like that. So a person can create, if you want to do it in like a clinical setting, a person can create within themselves an artificial emotional state, make themselves, think about really sad things and become sad, or think about really happy things and make themselves artificially happy, while controlling all of their micro expressions and their body language so that you can't see it. And as you stare into their eyes for a moment, see if you can read their emotional state. Do that more and more and more if you have people who are willing to do these weird experiments with you. These are controlled experiments you can do to increase your intuition. Also, just meditating more, clearing your mind, letting thoughts arise and cease on their own, and just maintaining a clear, serene emotional state and a clear, serene mental state as often as possible. Focusing on your breathing, sitting around for just a couple of minutes and focusing on nothing but your breathing. These are all things that we can do to not only improve our intuition, but improve our group dynamics when we work with people. And it can help us see people's differences and distinctions so we know how to delegate tasks and responsibilities to them appropriately. Makes that a lot easier. So I'm just going to pull some tarot cards, and I want to see, for example here, like another thing, like this is sharing your dream, right? I mentioned this is about sharing your dream, speaking up about what you want to see in the world, or what you want to see in the workplace, or a project that you're working on that you just need more support with, or you at least just need the people around you to understand what you're doing, even if you're not going to get support from them. Maybe just the support of them not being an obstacle could be enough support. So what is supporting you? Okay, we have Temperance. Now this is a Sagittarius card. This is a Jupiter associated card. This is like a card of alchemy. It's a card of knowing what you're working with. It's a card of balance. So I think you probably already do have a pretty well-trained intuition. I think you might actually not need to do any of those exercises I mentioned before. You probably have a pretty well-balanced intuition, and the ability to like see into the lunar sphere. Sagittarius always makes me think about that saying, shoot for the moon, because at least you'll make it over the treetops. Sagittarius is a very philosophical sign. It's a very penetrating energy. So I think what's supporting you is your imaginative ability, your ability to see into the imaginal world and to use those visions, that energy, to really look into your imaginal space here. And that last, like I described the lunar sphere, is that last sphere before manifestation. So taking a look, using your skills, that imaginal world needs your intuition oftentimes. And your visions, your imaginings are not pure fantasy. A lot of people think imagination is utter and pure fantasy. That's really not the case. It can be. It can be a place of delusion and illusion, but it can also be just a place of vision, of future thinking, and of being able to think laterally or think outside the box, to see things from a different perspective. So you have a creative capacity to see deeply into something. And it can have basically, if you trust that vision you have and really just go for it, even if it doesn't succeed to its utmost potentiality, even if it doesn't manifest exactly the way you imagined it, you'll still get pretty close to it, as long as you allow your imagination to be the target that you're shooting for. Don't compromise your vision. Don't compromise your imagining. It's yours, and there's a reason why you have this deep and penetrating imagination. Is because it can act as a good target for you to shoot for. And there's nothing wrong with shooting for that target, no matter how crazy it might seem, because it'll get you down the road. You'll at least make it over the treetops. So let's see what sort of obstacles might be here for you. This one. Oh, interesting. The Devil. That's your card, Capricorn. So this is the classic obstacle coming out in the obstacles place. Again, this could be a wish to maintain hierarchy that is undeserved. I'm not saying that that's you who wishes to do this. It could be someone in the group or someone you know who sees hierarchy as something other than what it really is, or maybe they think they should be higher up on the hierarchy than they actually are, and they again want to like manipulate that hierarchy, compete. This is the seeking harmony in a group usually comes after you've experienced some type of hindrance. So this hindrance that you might be recovering from or might have experienced earlier is still like there. You might be thinking about this obstacle that you've recently overcome, or there might be some hangover associated with it where it's still kind of nipping at your heels and it's still not a fully solved problem. This isn't really, I'm not getting the sense that this is something that's hugely important. Coming out to clarify is the Ten of Cups. It's not something that's unconquerable. It's something that's going to simply create some drag as you move forward. It's just a delaying mechanism, something that's going to slow you down. Like I just got the sense it's like having your shoe untied and you didn't notice it, and you kind of just have to stop and tie your shoe, or maybe you step on the shoelace and you stumble a little bit, but then you tie your shoe and it's fine. It's like a recurring issue that is just like a malaise issue. It's not a real obstacle. It's not a real it's not anything that can stop what's happening. It's just an annoying damn thing you have to deal with. And it could have something to do with you and your vision, with doubting your vision. It could be like you think your vision is too pie in the sky. You think it's an unattainable delusion. But when you think about this imagining, it brings you like happiness, like a real sense of happiness. So maybe you just have to let go of the specifics of the vision, but keep the general goal in mind, the general feeling you want, the general the aspects of the vision that it brings you. What about this vision makes you happy? Is it because it brought you freedom? Is it because it brought you upliftment? Is it because it brought you connection? Is it because it brought you community? Whatever the positive thing is, those are the things that are important, and the specifics of it are not so important. Having a certain number in your bank account, having a specific type of home, having a specific type of job, might not actually be what you need. And these specific things are perhaps making you miss certain opportunities that you could take, or making you second guess certain things. It's the desire to take the straight path to a goal when maybe you should allow yourself to take the meandering path, an indirect path, because that indirect path actually might be a lot straighter to your goal, and we just can't see it The devil is like things we can't see that are getting in our way. But I don't see anything actually wrong with your dream. It's just your fear that it might be too delusional or too great. It's not true. It's just going to show up in a different way. It's just not going to be precisely what you think it is. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm going to pull a token for you and round this all out. So we have Pluto and the number 12. So we have here, this is something that's deeply meaningful to you and deeply transformative for you. And it's going to be deeply transformative, even if it doesn't show up specifically as you want it to. So this whole process, this seeking harmony in a group dynamic, rethinking group dynamics, and staying true to your imaginal visions is the theme of this, trusting yourself, is going to have to come from a very deep place and perhaps a dark place within yourself. It's going to force you to perhaps look in places that you don't want to look, maybe within yourself or within other things outside yourself. The shadowy recesses of your inner world or the shadowy recesses of the outer world need to be closely examined, because they contain a great deal of useful power that you can use. And this goes back to that beginning, the dichotomy between the magus and the sorcerer. You see, the magus goes into the underworld, uses Pluto's and Hades' knowledge because it's there. It can be tamed and used, and if you are a spiritually superior person, all the spirits in the universe obey the spiritual human being, because the spiritual human being has a very special place in the hierarchy of reality, in that all beings must obey a spiritually advanced human. And understanding your sovereignty and superiority to all other beings in the cosmos is a very important thing for a magus to understand. Now, a sorcerer believes they're superior to all other beings in the universe without actually being superior. This is again that examination of hierarchy that we're looking at. Perhaps this is a little bit of that devil energy that came in, or this understanding how hierarchy really works. It's not an arrogation of status. It's an actual deserved status where someone is in the hierarchy, and being able to recognize objectively precisely where we are in a hierarchy, whether it's a hierarchy in the workplace or the cosmic hierarchy of reality, to develop a historical sense and a sense of self-awareness where we actually understand objectively where we are in any hierarchy that we are in, and being totally honest about it. Because if we're dishonest about it, we can get into a lot of trouble. If we're honest about it, we can use all sorts of powers ethically, even though it looks like it might be unethical. Like a lot of people don't like working with demons in the occult world because it's a huge risk. And it's true, it is an enormous risk. But imagine someone who spent like 45 years perfecting self-control, self-observation, and pious spiritual discipline, and has earned spiritual sovereignty and a high place in the spiritual hierarchy. They can work with demons no problem, and the demons actually want to do that person's bidding because, humans are made in the image of God. And when we command these forces of reality and we are advanced spiritual humans, it is as though God is directing these forces of energy, or these spiritual forces. And that's sort of where the magus is. The magus is kind of like an avatar of God. And that's where success comes in magical operations, is when we understand that about ourselves, and when we actually do the work on ourselves necessary to have that sovereignty. And when we have it, if we do have the objective self-awareness to recognize it, to understand that, one, don't be an arrogant ass and treat everyone with equality, like we were saying, even if they're not equals, like treat them with equal dignity. Or two, don't go the other way. Don't have like a false humility to the point of humiliation where you don't use your power or knowledge or sovereignty. Like, use it. Be who you are. Be what you are. And don't be ashamed of it. If you have certain spiritual advancement, if you have certain position, even if it's not a spiritual thing but a more mundane thing, if you have place and power and status, don't be afraid to use it. Because again, getting caught up on this idea of outcomes and not being able to see them can be paralyzing. And you might be thinking about that phrase, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I completely disagree with that. I know plenty of extremely powerful people who are extremely good people. Powerful in different spheres of life, politically, financially, and spiritually. And they're not corrupt. So I don't believe that at all. And that's a stupid quote from someone who I think just lacked life experience. Yeah, I think that quote needs to be like stricken from everyone's vocabulary, because people love to use that quote and they think it's deep and meaningful when it's really just a bunch of bullshit. And it makes good people afraid to wield power, whereas evil, corrupt people are not afraid to wield their power. So when you believe that quote, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, that means that you're probably a good person and you're not going to use your power because you think it's going to corrupt you. So that leaves power vacuums open in every sphere of life. Financial, political, social, and spiritual spheres of life are all now just open to evil people who will use their power, because all the good people think power is evil. It's not evil. Power is just power. It's neither good nor evil. It's just a thing you can use. And so this is about you using your power and not being afraid to use it. Don't get caught in analysis paralysis. And trust your intuition that your actions will lead to ethical outcomes that you can't see. And so, yeah, this is really, I think the moral of the story here is stop being afraid of your power. Don't be afraid to look into the shadowy places of the world and extract power from them. And I think as a Capricorn, you're probably pretty good at doing that. So, Capricorn, I think I'm going to leave it there for you. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.